good creativity and discussion requires some level of restriction and guardrails to it. Structure is necessary for, kids when they're growing up. Kids crave that structure so that they can explore within and work and test those boundaries. But having that structure, while it may be in part imposing and feeling as if it's limiting, it's also in a way freeing, because when you operate within that structure, there is a level of safety. So part of what we're looking to do with these rules is keep that safety area that allows for critical thinking. And as we go through these, it'll become, I hope, self-evident that the rules are in place in an attempt to make sure that the thinking and the discussion that's being held is in good faith.
Sure.
Is productive.
So, all right. So tell me, what are these rules?
Sure. So one of the first things is I only want to talk about things that are somewhat timeless. Obviously topical things I'm not afraid to address those, but I think too often people get their heads down and they fail to see the forest and are just looking at those trees. So I think that, day-to-day things can be representative of something larger, obviously, but let's focus on that larger thing where actions can actually be taken. That'll allow people, to look back at previous things, to engage with those. I'm not afraid to go back to some of the first episodes and readdress things and refine things. I'm sure that there are going to be plenty of times where I'm wrong, where I've said something and needed to go back on it. But yeah, I don't want to be talking about something that's irrelevant in a week, a month, a year, something like that. So, all right, next up, number 2. I am only going to promote things that I believe in, period. I see people all the time shilling products and selling out reputations to just make a quick buck. I'm not willing to damage reputation to make money. I'm not willing to sacrifice reputation just on a principled basis. There are plenty of things that I really like and would be open to talking about by name or something like that, but I'm not going to talk about things that I don't believe in from minute 1, period. No questions about it. So next up, number 3, no profanity. If there is profanity, we'll censor that out. I want people to be able to listen to stuff with their kids in the car. I think that excessive swearing kind of can detract from a message, and as such, want to stay away from that. There are other ways to express most ideas beyond swearing. Some jokes are only funny if you're swearing, but we'll refrain from those on this show. All right, now we'll kind of move into some of the more discussion-based things. So the first one, Rule 4, titled "Leave the Door Open." This is kind of trying to be an all-encompassing thing. Things are rarely completely and fully known, and quite often people get caught defending things that they said because they said them with just complete confidence. There was no room for dissent. Sometimes people don't want to be wrong, so then they're caught defending those things. I'm completely fine with being wrong at some point in the future. So the door is always open for dissent. I'll try and do my best to admit when I'm wrong and make whatever necessary corrections. But yeah, part of this is leaving the door open for other interpretations or perspectives. The goal here is to talk and to learn, not just to espouse a given viewpoint. So leaving that door open is necessary. Obi-Wan says to Anakin, only a Sith deals in absolutes. So we're not trying to be Sith Lords here. For all my Star Wars nerds out there.
Clearly, I was just going to say, we are trying to be Star Wars nerds.
Yeah. And I think for people engaged in discussions like this, it takes a degree of courage to embrace some of the nuances of conversation rather than just defaulting to taking a given side, taking one side or another, just all the way down the line is an easy thing to do, but dissenting from that and kind of paving your own way is something that requires critical thinking, which is what we're trying to do here. So, all right, number 5, everything stays up. Things are not to be deleted to hide past opinions or takes. It's relatively simple, but we're not going to be pulling down episodes, redacting things, stuff like that. I believe people can change. I know that I'll change. Part of changing is allowing your past self to die, and past things that I've said or posted aren't set in stone. Everything can be changed. It evolves over time. If I have new thoughts on something, I'll try and post those. Removing things from the past, though, it feels like you're trying to doctor a specific view of oneself. Like I'm perfect or something. That's obviously not the case. The goal here is to grow, to become better, to think deeper, and recognition of past mistakes and allowing those to die off in your mind, I think is really the path forward, not to hide things. So. Number 6, benefit of the doubt will be given. It seems simple enough, but I imagine going forward it's going to be difficult in practice. Too often, I think people assume the worst, and then end up being wrong. As a result, I want to do my best to have nuance and kind of assume the best, provided data doesn't say otherwise. Kind of goes along with like Hanlon's razor. That says, never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by stupidity. So, benefit of the doubt will be given. Next up, Rule 7. Complaints or criticisms will be accompanied with solutions. I really don't like it when people act as if something is stupid without providing a better solution. I think people oftentimes do this because they don't have a better solution or don't want to be criticized with the same vigor as they criticize others. Ultimately, when we're assessing options, people don't often correctly assess different risks. There's a lack of realization of positives that are currently benefited from oftentimes, and risks of a new model oftentimes aren't properly understood. This is summarized nicely, but somewhat simply, with the phrase, grass is always greener on the other side. I want to provide a solution as well. I hope this stops me from, casting stones whilst living in a glass house, as the saying goes, or missing the plank in my own eye. All right. Next up, Rule 8. Multiple perspectives will be represented. I want to try and provide options and information. I don't want things I say to be taken as like gospel or something like that. Topics are complicated. I think it'll be infrequent for me to be able to outline all perspectives that could be represented, but I want to try and represent or discuss at least a couple each time, even if I'm providing some level of dissent on one or another. Right. Rule 9. I'm going to try my best to steel man arguments. I heard this phrase first from Eric Weinstein. I don't know if he came up with it, but I think it communicates the meaning pretty effectively. It's kind of the opposite of straw manning someone's argument, steel manning being the antithesis, where you're trying to strengthen your opponent's argument as much as possible so that you're actually contending with something. I need to strengthen arguments against me as much as my own to make sure mine hold up. We kind of talked earlier about building a tower or structure and then trying to tear that down as an idea and seeing what's left afterward. You could also think of whatever's left standing should continue on. Whatever's not consumed by fire is strong enough, and the only way to figure out what's strong is to set the tower ablaze. This somewhat leads me to the next rule, which is Rule 10. Ideas and actions are to be the subject to be criticized, not people. We're kind of talking about this earlier. But I want people to criticize my ideas, not me. I want my ideas to be separate from me. If they're good, then they're good, independent of who I am. If they're bad, then they're bad, independent of who I am. I want to try my best to extend the same hand to other people. Know that I want people to viciously attack my ideas to see what they're truly made of. And I want to do the same to other people's. I think this is how discourse, is supposed to take place, where we're talking about ideas and not resorting to like character attacks or something like that. This is how we really get to the bottom of the things, in my opinion. How we get to the truth. When people are able to kind of divorce themselves, divide themselves, like I was talking about earlier, from their ideas, then we're able to really truly change, adapt, and learn to grow as people. When they're not able to do this, when they're not able to separate those two, people can pretty quickly become hurt, emotional, and that ultimately results in a failure to learn, I think. I believe that sometimes, this can be a marker of immaturity, and something that I often see in discourse nowadays, where people are unable to separate who they are as a person, their worth as a person, from the ideas that they have. So if you criticize someone's idea, it feels like people say it feels like you're attacking them. So I want to focus on criticizing an idea, not a person, and I want people to do that with me.
And there are kind of like two sides of that too, right? Because there's the don't attack a person for what their idea is.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also the thing of don't think that your idea has special worth because of who you are.
Yeah,
appeal
that's
to
true.
authority.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So it's like in both directions they should be separate.
Yeah. We were talking about kind of the state of modern discourse. Something else that I see a lot of is not listening. So Rule 11 is listen to understand. I watch people in discussions, whether that be in person or online now, post-COVID, that they think they're listening and they're not actually. They're listening with their ears, but not with their minds. They're not thinking about what others are saying. They listen just so that they can speak next, not so that they can actually learn. As a result, they really fail to explore new ideas. They fail to learn. They fail to grow. I don't want to pass up on opportunities to learn, to grow. So I'm going to try my best to listen, to understand, and not to just refute a point or to say what I want to say. Next up, Rule 12. Criticize yourself more than others. Set your house in order before criticizing the world. This kind of comes from some of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, but I want my ideas to be well vetted and strong. So I'm going to do my very best to criticize them, to highlight their deficiencies, and to be even more rough on mine than other people's ideas. I think this is only fair if I want to criticize other people's ideas. I'm going to try my best to set my own house in perfect order before I criticize the world, as Jordan Peterson suggests, or take the plank out of my own eye before looking at the speck in my brother's, as Jesus says. In a similar biblical vein, also cited by Jordan Peterson, I'll try my best to tell the truth, or at least don't lie, which is the next rule. I think ultimately lies are used to deceive and almost always have nefarious intent. People don't lie when they're trying to truly learn. People don't lie when they're trying to engage in the types of discussions that we're looking to here. So I want to not do that on this podcast so that we can maximize the communication that we've got and as a result, the learning that takes place here. All right, next up, Rule 14, be precise in your speech. Another one kind of similar to 12 Rules for Life. I always reference this with my wife. I say precision of language, Jonas, referencing the book The Giver. I think people often keep their language vague so that they can keep things ambiguous. Is they're afraid of failure or being wrong. If they're precise with things that they said, then they can be attacked or God forbid, they could be wrong. It could be called out in front of others. I'm not afraid to be wrong, and I want to be as clear as possible about what I'm saying. So I'm going to try my best to be precise in my speech. When quoting the Giver, I know that the actual instance where this is said is often in relation to love and other things that aren't really experienced by the neutral and dull people described in the Giver. But I do think that the sentiment of being clear in what you're talking about is one positive of their society, even if it's a little perversely applied. All right, next up, Rule 15: give credit as best as possible. I think you've heard me reference a few times, different people, whether that's biblical verses or places where I've gotten ideas. I don't want to sit here and act as if every single idea that I'm discussing is one unique to my own. I try my best to build upon things, to fully explore them, to figure out what it is that I agree with versus what I don't agree with. So I'm not just going to reiterate what somebody else has said and not bring anything unique to the table. I'm going to try my best to really incorporate different things, but also build upon them myself. And I don't want people to think that something's wildly unique if it's not. I'm going to try my best to provide like links or references or citations for things where I'm building off of something, because I think that giving credit to people for their ideas is something really critical. Last up, Rule 16, talk about things that are helpful and have utility and state that utility. So I'm going to do my very best because when I listen to things, I don't want to be just having discussions for discussion's sake. I want to actually be talking about things that matter to people, have some bearing on reality. I'm going to try and make some of those things more clear. Oftentimes it's going to be a discussion to explore new modes of being, of thinking, and to highlight the importance of really analyzing the things more deeply, whether that's a bar of soap or a granola bar, or something more deep, more philosophical or theological.